Nice to meet you, Davey.
I had to get on the night, eat humble pie.
How come?
Tommy Watson, I says it's too early for him after the West Brom game, out of his depth. And then this happens.
This is why I never commit either way, just in case.
I know.
Just getting me the camera thing set up again. Hold on a minute. I don't know why, but OBS, it has a mind of its own sometimes. I change the settings to it, and then you're just about to go, and then it changes the camera settings again. So, technology. But that's just about it now. So, we are live now then. So, we've got special guest James Copley, and we've got our usual Davey. How are you guys doing? You okay? Well, thanks for coming on, James, mate.
No problem. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so first of all, in cracking 3 points, then wasn't it against Stoke City?
Yeah, definitely. I think in very challenging circumstances as well. It was a cold and wet old afternoon. I was very chilly at the stadium, so God knows how the players felt. So I think it's always challenging in those types of conditions, those types of weather. I thought Sunderland played fairly well. I thought that the first half should have been about 4-2 to us. To be honest, it was crazy. And then as time went on and it was still 1-1, you start to get that fear, don't you, that we're going to draw another game. And I think Sunderland fans would have been pretty annoyed with that, and I wouldn't have blamed them because obviously it's chilly and you don't want to draw games at home against Stoke. But obviously, Tommy Watson getting the winner was just the tonic for the weather. And yeah, I think definitely a much needed sort of return to form after what was it, 6 games without a win, wasn't it? So yeah, definitely pleased, and I think it's a good fixture coming up now tomorrow, and hopefully we can capitalise.
You think the same, Davey?
Yeah. I thought under the conditions we played really well. Like I was really surprised how much of a good game it was.
Yeah,
it was good football. Everybody, it wasn't like I thought, oh, this is going to be hell. And Sunderland played so well. I mean, Job just demanded the ball all the time. It was fantastic. They're just giving him the ball all the time. He's driving us on. It's just great to watch at the minute.
It's man. Oh, we've got Yorkshire Mackem. Are you all right, Yorkshire Mackem? Jacob, how you doing, mate? He's just joined us.
Yeah, not bad, thanks. How are you all?
Hello,
not too bad. Just talking about the Stoke City game. What were your thoughts, Jacob?
I thought it was a good game. I think we played really well. Pretty much. I think after we equalised, I think we created lots of chances, and we were definitely the better team that day. And you'd think maybe the weather would go against us, be typical for Sunderland to lose with this weather, but no, handled it really well.
I thought the weather was going to make a huge factor of it, but I thought Sunderland kept the ball on the deck pretty well. There was a lot of quick passing, quick movement. I thought Patrick Roberts had a decent game, to be quite honest with you. He caused a lot of problems. He nearly scored earlier on, didn't he? But as James mentioned before, it was like it was just vital to get that win. I mean, we went 1-0 down. It was a pretty strange goal to concede that, wasn't it, James? When you think of it, it was like it's just like people just getting settled on the seats, and all of a sudden the ball's in the back of the net. It was a bit scrappy.
Yeah, and I thought Sunderland had been absolutely fine up until that point as well. I thought they were playing quite well. I think I'm a big fan of Adji Elise. I think he can definitely do a job at left back. I do prefer him at centre back, but he is quite capable of playing that. I just felt like he was in no man's land a bit for that goal. He got caught out, unfortunately, and I think actually Patterson makes a decent first save. I've seen some people suggest that perhaps he could have done better, or push it out for a corner. But I think it's sort of point blank range at him, isn't it? So I think he's actually done well to keep the first one out. And we're unlucky, I think, that it's fallen to a Stoke player and they've managed to turn it in. However, you can't fault the response, can you? Because it was superb to equalise so soon afterwards that you didn't even really have to have time to think about going 1-0 down. So in that regard, I like it when stuff like that happens in a sense, because it's a good test of character, isn't it? It's a good gut check. How do you deal with adversity? Because I've seen many a Sunderland team who would have gone under thinking about the Championship relegation season in those conditions against sort of a physical, decent Stoke side. So I was hugely pleased with the result. And as I mentioned, just to get back to winning ways, I think is vital, and we'll see what happens now going forward. But if that's going to be Sunderland's blip of the season, where they draw 5 games and then lose 1, then I'll take that, to be honest. But there's a lot of football left to be played, isn't there?
Let's not forget that lose one at Sheffield United. It was just fine margins. It could have been such different if we'd scored that penalty.
Exactly.
It wasn't as if we've got played off the park. I mean, the Sheffield United fans I've spoke to, and they're not just saying that, that probably meant the fact, like, Sunderland were by far the hardest team that they've played at Bramall Lane this season, and we were just so unlucky. But we've never beat Bristol City at the Stadium of Light since it's opened. I don't know if you know about that, James. That fact.
I was actually told that today by Nick Barnes at the press conference.
Barnsley.
So I found that out today, and I couldn't believe it actually. But thinking back, like the Premier League years,
how many times have we played them, though?
I was going to say, Dave, we haven't played that much. I don't know how many times we've played them, but we haven't played them that much over the Premier League years, and then being in League One. So it's a strange stat, that, but yeah, it's hopefully we can change that. It'd be nice to get 6 points from 2 games.
Yeah.
I was talking to Marco on Total Sport and that tonight, thinking like, and I just wish it would go in for Isidore at the minute. It's like it's just not falling for him at the minute, is he? He seems to be getting these chances, and they seem to be like going everywhere, but in the back of the net. Like we know he's capable of doing it, like, but he just needs that goal back again, doesn't he? And hopefully, if he keeps on knocking on the door, one will sort of like bulge the back of the net, like. But what do you think, James? Do you think he had a quiet game early on, the first 35 minutes or so?
I think he did. I liked the free kick that he took. I thought that was good. It was a good effort, decent save, a really good save actually, because I think the ball sort of moved slightly as well. I like what he does. I think he runs the channels fairly well. He's obviously been unlucky with a couple of offside goals recently. I mean, there were a couple of really marginal ones. Obviously had one ruled out against Stoke City as well. I like him. I think with Wilson Isidore, he's got the temperament and the mentality to play for Sunderland. You can see he wants to do well. Yeah. You can see it affected him, actually, Sunderland not winning games. And I think it's affected him that he hasn't scored. I think he'll be desperate to get back on the goal scoring train. He's got 5 already this season, so I think he's doing okay. As long as everybody else is sort of chipping in, but it would be nice to see him score again. I think you always want your strikers in form. But I've been really pleased with him since we signed him, to be honest. I think he's been a breath of fresh air. Really nice guy as well. And is really bought into the club. I mean, I think we've all seen the videos of him dancing when the lights get turned on, and he's delivered a couple of interviews. I was at the talking at the Stadium of Light, the new signings talking at the beginning of the season, and he was really good crack, really good value. A bit like Luke O'Nien in a sense that he's very bubbly. And we've had enough players over the years, and you can tell the ones that don't want to be here and take the club for granted. But he's definitely not one of them. He wants to do well. He wants to progress his career, and I'd back him to get back amongst the goals. And I mean, at the start of the season, he set the target of 15 goals, and I was sort of shocked at the time. I was like, it's quite a thing for a new signing to say, isn't it? But he's a third of the way there, and I'd back him to get there. I think he's got a good chance of getting 15, to be honest. So yeah, I like him. I like him as a player. I like him as a person. And I think he's doing the right things. Although he hasn't got a goal in the past couple of games, he is definitely doing the right things. I would be concerned if we were seeing sort of a Will Grigg-esque performance or something like that. But for me, he's getting in the right positions, and that's always positive.
Yeah, and of course Gary Bennett he keeps correcting me. He says, like, he wasn't a striker originally when he first came to the club. He was he was a winger, so he's not really an out and out striker, but he's certainly proven he's worth there, isn't he? And we were talking about. Sorry, carry on, James.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I think with Isidore, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think as football fans and as Sunderland fans, we want to sort of shoehorn or pigeonhole players into one position, but it might just be that he can do both, and I think that's probably quite positive that he can play on the left if needs be. However, Sunderland have actually got a couple of very good left wingers on the books anyway at the moment, so it just so happens that he's needed more up front.
Excuse me, got one of these tickly coughs. And of course, we're still waiting for the arrival of is it Samed? It looks like we're not going to possibly see him till the new year by the looks of things, or possibly the fringe of December. Like even lots of good reports about that lad, So we've still got the likes of Samed to make an appearance, like. So Dennis Serkin, I thought he made a difference as well when he came back on. And of course, Romain Mundle. And we stopped our winning ways the minute Romain Mundle was injured and off he went. And do you agree, James, the fact like he's been a big miss since he's been not on the field? Romain Mundle, he's been such a big presence and a pain in the backside to the defenders, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he has been a miss. He's still top of Sunderland's goal contributors this season with 6, so goals and assists. He's leading the way. So he is a massive part of Sunderland's team, the way Sunderland played it. It has taken Watson a little bit of time to get up to speed, as Dave mentioned before the show started. You know, Sheffield United was good, and the game obviously against Stoke City was good, but you know, he played on the right, then he played on the left. So it has taken a little bit of bedding in, which we can forgive him that because he's only 18 years old. But I think Mundle has done just about as good a job as you could have dreamed, really, for the player he was replacing. I was a little sceptical in the summer, to be honest with you, when Jack Clark went and it was made clear that Romain Mundle was the guy. It was sort of like wow, is he going to be able to do that? But it turns out that Sunderland managed to get themselves a really, really good player last January. And he showed it in flashes in pre-season away at Bradford City. So yeah, it'll be a big boost to get him back. But does he get in the team at the moment ahead of Tommy Watson? That's a question. I suspect he probably would eventually, but he's a little way back from coming back anyway. But I mean, what a nice thing to have if you had a fully fit and firing Romain Mundle who could play 60 minutes, and then Tommy Watson could come on. You know, they could flip it round when Sunderland have got 3 games in a week. So I think the club deserve credit for the way they've handled Jack Clark's exit, and to have 2 players of that caliber and that class already at the club, I think has been impressive. And had you asked us all in the summer, you know, will Sunderland be able to cope with Jack Clark going, given the season we had last season, we all probably would have said no. But you know, they've managed to cope with it actually quite well, considering. So I think it's that position's really pleasing at the moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Mundle, the big plus side of Mundle is his strength. I think he's got great strength on the ball, which obviously Watson hasn't got yet. But that all comes with playing games and experience. But yes, I've been absolutely amazed by Mundle because, like as James said, in the close season, he didn't really set us alight last season. But then again, he played at a time when this team was playing poorly. Jack Clark, he couldn't get ahead of Jack Clark. And like you see, he's done really well to step on it straight away. And you're not missing Jack Clark, which I couldn't possibly say in the summer.
No, it's a good point there, Davey. What do you reckon, Jacob, about Mundle? Do you think we've missed him?
Maybe a little bit, but we've still had players like, you know, we've got Meander, haven't we, and Roberts. So, yeah, it's not... Hopefully when he's back, he can be back to his usual self, because Mundle's a good player. If not, he's just as good as Jack Clark, you know. So, there's still a lot of good players in our squad. We're not a one-man team, that's for sure.
No.
No, and as James says before, it's a nice thing it's a nice problem to have, isn't it? To wonder who we're going to be fitting here and there because there's that many. Hello.
Cabbie, just getting on to about one thing James might be able to put us in the picture of. Did you have a chance to see Luke 09 on Saturday?
I didn't see him afterwards. No, I didn't see him afterwards.
When you see him, I don't know if you watch that Access All Areas.
Oh, yeah.
When he was coming down the stairs, he looked ill and he was wrapped up, and even the coach said he's not very well, didn't go near him. So I was absolutely amazed at the performance he put on. Absolutely amazed.
So was at the Academy of Light, Lebris did his pre-Bristol City press conference, and he was asked about Luke 09 and Patrick Roberts. I think Patrick Roberts was a little under the weather as well. He said Roberts is fine and the rest of the squad's fine, but I think Luke 09 is a little bit of a doubt. He says they'll have to see how he is. So I think what you've observed there is correct, Davey, and I think he was pretty under the weather, and he's done well to get through the game. However, now Meppem's back. Do they just take Luke 09 out for a game, let him recover? That could be an option because you've got, you know, a very fine centre-back in Dan Ballard as well, which, again, is another nice problem to have, isn't it? The options in
I think Reggie's dodged a bullet there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, hasn't he? He has, yeah. He's made the decision for him.
No, I wouldn't know which way he would go. I honestly don't.
No, I think it's a really interesting question because I think in terms of pure defenders, I think Dan Ballard and Chris Mepham are probably your best. But in terms of the best partnership I've seen this season, it's definitely Mepham and 09 for what 09 can bring, bringing the ball out from the back. He's very good with his feet, his leadership skills, his experience. So I couldn't pick the best partnership really. I think it's really, really tough. And again, you go back to last season and we were all talking about Dan Ballard as potentially one of the best centre backs in the Championship, and I think he still is.
Definitely.
It's very nice to have that problem. But credit to Luke O'Neill as well, because he's played ill. He's played with, a really, really bad shoulder before. He's played with injuries. He is very much Mr. Sunderland, and he'll do anything for this club. And he deserves a great amount of credit for his improvements as well. I think he's come on leaps and bounds, especially at centre back, which wasn't initially his position. So yeah, I think he brings so much to that squad in terms of experience and leadership and level-headedness as well. I think he's a brilliant bloke and a good player for us as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, were you at all any bit concerned, James, when we went to all them games draw? I mean, I got a bit paranoid thinking, has the wheels come off, or were you thinking along the lines of nothing to worry about? This is just a blip. We'll get back on track.
I think I had sort of two schools of thought. It's always really concerning when Sunderland go through any blip, isn't it? Because we've seen it so many times over the years. We're sort of conditioned to heartache. We're conditioned to bad things happening to Sunderland because we've all experienced enough of that over the years. But I just thought in the performances there wasn't enough for me to think that like Sunderland had really dropped off a cliff. The most concerned I was, weirdly, was against Coventry City, because I thought that was the best I'd seen Sunderland play.
That was frustrating, that game, wasn't it? Oh.
Yeah, and the worst I'd seen Sunderland play. And when you consider it, the QPR game, there was the Job red card. Preston, I think that was my most concerning one, in the sense that Sunderland looked a bit tired, looked a bit toothless. Millwall, there were so many injuries and suspensions, and on another day we could have won that game. Alexic puts that chance away, or even if the ball goes out for a corner from the deflection of the goal, and we've won that game. Sheffield United as well, there was mitigation there with the red card, the penalty miss. Obviously they got the red card as well, which evened it up. They then score, towards the end of the game, which was a really tough one to take. So for me, there wasn't quite enough to think that the wheels had fully fallen off. It wasn't like we were getting beaten, 6 or 7 out or anything like that, or would sort of fallen off the edge of a cliff. For me, it was. There's some things we need to improve on. We've gone through a little bit of a dip. There are injuries and suspensions, but I always felt like we'd come out the other side of it. Saying that, it's always a relief when they do, isn't it? It's always a relief when they come out the other side of it and beat Stoke City at home, because the longer that goes, the worse you feel it's going to be, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just got a message.
I was the same as you, James. I kept telling Cabbie, stop worrying. We're still playing well. That's the most important thing, that you perform on the pitch. You can never guarantee results, never ever. But you can guarantee that if you play well, you've got a good chance of getting results. And Sunderland was still playing well week in, week out. So you've just got to live with it. The only time I will say that Lebrun's been caught out was the second half against Coventry. Coventry had nothing to lose. He changed it up. He pushed his whole side 10 yards up, and it caught us out. That's the only time I've got any complaints about Lebrun.
No, I tend to agree. I've just got to take a quick phone call, but I'll be back in 2 minutes, and I'll stay on for another 20 minutes or so.
Okay, mate.
Yeah.
2 seconds.
Excuse me, my cough. I've got a tickly cough. It's that time of year where it's. I've always got a cough or unwell the last 3 weeks of Christmas. God's sake. I've got loads of people in the chat and loads of messages and stuff. I'll say hello to Jim and hello to Gary Hall. Excuse my throat at the moment. Hello to SJ, John Nesbitt, David Joblin, Jim N. Colin Mayer just says, good evening, Stuart, James and Jacob and Jim Royal. Oh, dear me. And Jim N says, Alt Endon says Isidore was a striker from the off. Some say that he is, and some say the odd. Excuse me. Hello, Dougie Stewart. How you doing, fella? Jim N says, how could anybody answer no to the poll unless it was a mistake? I put off something on the poll about Watson being the player of the match against Stoke. Jacob, do you think he was player of the match?
Who was that? Sorry.
Watson?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I tell you what, I think he's the actual next Jack Clark is Watson. Definitely.
It's just ironic, isn't it? Sorry, did you carry on, mate?
He looks a lot like Jack Clark and all, doesn't he?
No, he does. He plays like him.
Yeah, I think he's got a sibling who's at Sunderland in the academies. He's only 12, but he's in.
No, he's got two brothers there.
Yeah.
I think it was funny on his interview with he was chewing his chewing gum when Barnsley was interviewing. He kept going. Like proper
We've had a Watson before, haven't we? We've had Dave Watson, who was part of the '73 team, and soon as when I first heard of his name, Watson, when I went to see under-21s against Blackburn away, I thought, oh, Watson, the player I remember. Well, I won't lie, but Watson I remember for Sunderland is Dave Watson.
Yep.
So I thought, it could be the next version of him. So.
He was a hell of a player, Dave, wasn't he?
Oh, aye. Class.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gary Hoyle says, evening, lads. SJ says, 4 academy players in the team. It shows the young lads that are there. There's a pathway to the first team.
Academy's working. Them under-21s are a great watch.
Oh, yeah, and somebody mentioned that on Total Sport tonight. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was you or was it Mark that was saying about Watson. It's like it's nice to see he score his first goals for the club and the first team, but he's been banging some crackers in for the under-21s.
Yeah. And he's like they're like playing with the mates, man, aren't they?
Oh, aye, I know. It's great to see. Jim N says, hi, Cabbie, Davey, Jacob, and James. Jim also says, great to see you, one of you, James. I've a challenge for you. Can you get to the end without saying cavied? I don't know what he means by that. Do you know what he means, Davey, by that? Cavied?
No.
Oh goodness me! He's popped out. He was only going to do 20 minutes because he said he had to do something, but he's obviously feeling like he wants to come back in, which is good.
Oh, good, very good. Good lad, James and Phil Smith. Good crack.
Aye, spot on.
Yeah.
John Nesbitt says, good evening, guys. David Joblin says, good evening. Gary Hoyle says, hopefully that's the blip over and we go on to bigger and better things. John Nesbitt says, the Nesbitt brothers are in the house. John Nesbitt, 8+3 should have been a true score. I've already said a lot to Colin Major. John Nesbitt says, the Henderson rumour has gone cold. I will ask James about that if he's... I'm sure he's snippies about. Someone else in the chat have said, anybody know what happened to the SAFC commentary, the audio commentary? It was off, and there was not a thing, no statement or anything from Sunderland AFC, which I think's a bit naughty, to be honest with you, because people are paying for subscriptions for that, including myself.
What the matter was the match not on, like?
There was no audio for the first 45 minutes. There was no audio coming from the SCFC audio pass, and it was just silence. And they kept posting on thingy.
Do you not watch it on the stick, like?
I do, but I mean, I have the audio coming. Do you know? Welcome back, James, mate.
Do you not what? Danny Collins' version of the match. Do you not listen to the commentary on that?
I watched that, but for the audio, because I have like the audio on the background. I've got it through the audio pass. Right. Do you know what I mean? But I do watch it on the thingy. But were you aware, James, that the fact like there was no audio coming from the SCFC site for the match against Stoke?
I saw some stuff on Twitter, but obviously I didn't get to the bottom of what had happened or whether it came on in the second half. I saw a few people asking the question, but I don't know what had happened.
It's strange, isn't it? Like, a few people are saying that people are paying for a subscription for audio pass, and it's a bit below par. That the fact that the club can't even come up with some sort of suggestion to say apologies, that the fact that we have no audio commentary at the moment, and they still haven't said anything regarding what had happened to that. They did come on with a commentary in the second half, but they linked up with the Danny Collins and co. So whether the weather had a lot to do with that, Chris is asking on the chat, I don't know. It could have been, because it was atrocious. So, and there's no way of contacting Sunderland Football Club. You used to be able to phone them, used to be able to phone the office and that, but you can't now. There's just no way really of contacting them. Going to go to a question here. Who's asked it again? John Nesbitt says that the Jordan Henderson rumour's gone quiet. Did you read about the rumours in some of the headlines that Jordan Henderson would like to possibly, he could end up finishing his career at Sunderland? And do you think it'd be a good move, James, if he did?
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? I think we could definitely benefit with somebody of his experience, his calibre. Obviously, he's playing in the top league in Holland at the moment. I don't know how suited he would be to the Championship at his age now. I genuinely don't know. That's not me trying to disparage Jordan Henderson. I'm honestly just not sure, because what is he, 34, 35? Does him coming in sort of hamper the development of a Dan Neil or a Chris Rigg or Job? Again, that's another question. I'm not sort of offering an opinion either way. I just think these are all things that would have to be sort of thought about and resolved. I think if he was to come back, he would bring a great deal of obviously leadership and experience, but I think he'd have to significantly, take a pay cut, lower his wage demands, because obviously the Championship, they're not going to be paying him the same that he's on at Ajax and the same that he's been used to. So I think there's a lot to fall in place for it to happen. I do think though, and I don't know Jordan Henderson at all. I don't know anybody that knows him. This isn't any sort of insider information, but I just wonder if he would like that move to sort of have the fairy tale ending to his career, because obviously it went so well for him at Liverpool, but then there was so much noise about him going to Saudi Arabia and his reasons behind that, and going into semi-retirement and all of the controversy around his support of the Rainbow Laces campaign and the perceived hypocrisy. It got very difficult for him, I would imagine, and I do wonder if he'd just like to go back to Sunderland and sort of get his career back on track, be loved, sort of have that hero's welcome to try and get his boyhood club back to the Premier League. I think that would be a nice story. It would be a nice ending to his story. Whether he fits, I don't know, but it's certainly an interesting one to watch coming in January. I don't know if Sunderland will be massively busy in January. I'm genuinely not sure yet, but it's always an interesting month. But I think, just thinking on Henderson as well, I think the contract, in terms of the contract length, would have to be pretty short term, given his age. Whether he would accept that, I don't know. So it is very interesting. I just feel like there's a lot would have to fall into place. And I was actually having this conversation. I think you're right to point out that it's gone very quiet, hasn't it? And my colleague Phil Smith sort of suggested that maybe his agent or somebody close to him was sort of seeing what the reaction would be, seeing if there were going to be any takers, and perhaps why that's why those sorts of stories were out there, and that's potentially why it's gone cold again. So definitely want to watch, but haven't really heard of anything concrete regarding it yet. So interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, when you look at it, James, it looks like you've just said there, it's a sort of move that would suit Jordan Henderson, wouldn't it? It would suit Jordan Henderson more than the model.
Yeah, definitely more.
You know, I mean, you're on about his dad's got a box at the stadium, so there will be connections there, and you just don't know, do you? You just don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
I think as well with Sunderland and the model, obviously that model is to bring in young players, to upskill them, to develop them, to bring them through the academy. But they have shown a willingness to get older players if it's right, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that they will sign Corey Evans on a free, who's a little bit older, if the contract length is right, if it's the right time in the career, if they can add value. You know, I know Alan Brown's been an older signing, hasn't he? But he came sort of without a transfer fee, and I say older by Sunderland standards. I think he's only 28 or 29, something like that.
Yeah.
So they will sign aging players, but it tends to be for no transfer fee. Whether that could be worked out with Ajax in January remains to be seen. So I think there's a lot would have to happen for it to come off. But I mean, I certainly wouldn't rule it out.
No.
I think it would just have to be right. And I think I'm probably a little bit scarred by the Jermaine Defoe return, isn't it? That sort of, you know, returning players coming back to Sunderland doesn't seem as sort of as attractive anymore.
No.
As they say he should never go back. But you know, Grant Ledbetter came back and did well for Sunderland in League One, and it was through no fault of his that Sunderland didn't manage to get promoted. I think in terms of Sunderland's like midfield balance, I think he could definitely help players like Dan Neil and Chris Rigg and Joe Bellingham. There's no doubt about that. He would have to accept as well that he probably wouldn't play every game. But in terms of somebody to learn from and to look at, somebody who captained Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool to the Champions League, the Premier League, the FIFA Club World Cup. I think he got an FA Cup in there as well. I think even a couple of League Cups, Charity Shield. You know, he's been to tournaments with England. So I think in terms of learning from a player like that, I think it would be invaluable for some of Sunderland's youngsters. But whether it happens or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a good story to get interested in, isn't it, ahead of January?
I think it would make all the other teams sit up and take notice, wouldn't it? Your Leeds and your Burnleys.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it would definitely be a statement. I mean, the headlines that it would generate would be massive because he's such a big name. But it's one of those, isn't it? It's like, is it a priority for Sunderland? Is centre midfield a priority for Sunderland? Obviously, you know, and you can't say that it is at the moment. Obviously, things might change with injuries or suspension, whatever. But for me, at the moment, I'd like a little bit more cover at fullback and then potentially some added firepower as well, if possible. So
yeah,
it's one of those where does it really work now? Does it fit now? I don't know. I really don't know.
I think they'll be reluctant in January to buy another striker because we haven't seen the new one yet, have we? I don't know how far where he is from getting on the grass.
Yeah, Abdullah Hai, I think he's called, or something like that. I'm genuinely not sure how close he is.
Nothing's been mentioned about him, has there? About how close he is to coming.
No,
I think it might be in the new year at some point, but I can't say when. He's potentially one for next season, maybe. I think I say striker in terms of Sunderland are going to be in the hunt come Christmas, aren't they? They're going to be in and around the playoffs, in and around the top two. And I just think if they could go and get some added firepower, maybe from a Premier League side on loan, something like that, that could really help Sunderland push on. You saw Ipswich Town do it last season. They went and got a couple of
strikers on the bench.
Exactly, and that's what wins you games, isn't it? I know we've got Aaron Connolly fishing around, and hopefully he's going to come good and get a few more goals as well. But I don't know. Maybe it's Ipswich Town sort of clouding me judgment on that one because of what they did last season. But just feel like Sunderland could do with another one.
Yeah, he certainly wouldn't need introduced around the area, would he? Endo, he's kind of fit straight back in, isn't he?
Right.
You know what I mean? Gary Hoyle said hello to Andrew Mewett in the chat. Welcome. Gary Hoyle says, obviously, with the January transfer window is getting nearer and nearer and nearer, and therefore the stories start to get more and more, don't they? And he's gone, more stories are about the Premier League vultures hovering for our talent. Do you think James will have a possible difficult transfer window, trying to keep hold of the likes of Riggy and co?
So I don't think that I'm going to have to write too many difficult transfer stories, if that makes sense. And I mean difficult in terms of Sunderland players actually leaving. I can't see that happening in January, to be honest. Obviously, I'm going to be writing a lot of transfer stories because there's going to be a lot of noise. I think there will be a lot of interest in the likes of Job, in the likes of Rigg. I think what you're seeing with Rigg and Job is that they've become household names as well. Clubs are very aware of them. Fans are very aware of them. So I think there'll be a lot of noise. There might even be a few bids, but I'm not convinced that either of them are going to go anywhere quickly especially in January. It just doesn't make sense for Sunderland, especially if they're still in the hunt. The only way in which I could see that changing would be if like ridiculous money came on the table.
I was just going to say, if Borussia Dortmund come in with like 50 million, which would be now to them, then you would have to look at it, wouldn't you, on the business side?
I think you would probably have to look at it, but I think that the monster bids will probably come in the summer, because I think it just makes sense for Job to and Rig as well to stay at Sunderland for another 6 months. And let's not forget as well, both of these players signed contracts in the summer, so I think they're fairly committed to Sunderland for at least this season. I mean, Joe Bellingham could have pushed for his move to Crystal Palace last summer because they put in a couple of bids. Chris Rigg could have left Sunderland probably, as far as I'm aware, 2 or 3 times now, and he hasn't, because he wants to be at the club and he wants to play his football here and he wants to play in the Championship. So I don't think it makes sense in January. That's not to say that there won't be interest in transfer stories, because that's just the way the world goes round, unfortunately. And I think, like, you know, Sunderland have got some good players, and we should probably take it as a compliment as well, to be honest, because, you know, the likes of Tottenham, Crystal Palace, Dortmund, all being linked, you know, Manchester United as well. It's a far cry from where we were with Callum McFadzean at left back and whatnot in League One. So I think
get rid of them.
Yeah, it's one of those where, like, there's going to be a lot of noise. You could take a little bit of it with a pinch of salt, but I can't see any major departures. To be honest, I really can't.
Yeah.
Of course, you mentioned the summer. I think it will also make a difference what happens with Sunderland at the end of this season, whether we're in the Championship or whether we're in the Premier League, because, you know, you've got to. It's not impossible; it can happen. So, you know, that if we made it to the promised land, then it's really going to stir up the wasp's nest, isn't it, for the transfer windows and stuff.
I think this summer is potentially really, really interesting. If Sunderland didn't get promoted, you've got a situation where there's like 8 or 9 players that could possibly be attracting Premier League interest. And I find that interesting on a couple of counts, because Sunderland have sold players. They've sold Ross Stewart, they've sold Jack Clark, and they've sold them for big money. That money's to be reinvested in the playing squad. But Sunderland have sort of maintained the line that they only really want to sell one a summer, which I think is fair enough. If you can get the money for them, if it's time for them to go and you can reinvest, then absolutely, I think you should pull the trigger on that. But Sunderland have also been pretty clear that they won't stand in a player's way if they want him to go. They had the agreement with Jack Clark that if they didn't get promoted, then they wouldn't stand in his way. And there was a sort of a similar thing with Ross Stewart as well, that if the money came in during that summer, then he would be allowed to go. You could be faced with a scenario in the summer where, you know, there's interest in 5, 6, 7 players, and those players are turning around and saying, well, you know, I'd quite like to go. I've given Sunderland a good 2 or 3 years of me career. You said you wouldn't stand in my way, and then all of a sudden you've got a massive rebuild on your hands. There is potential for that to happen, I think. How Sunderland deal with that, I don't know. Would they be able to keep on hold of 1 or 2 a bit longer, persuade some to stay? It is quite a good environment to be in and around Sunderland, as I understand it. So, yeah, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, because, you know, we could get promoted by that time. We might not. There's loads of different things that could happen, injuries and stuff like that. But I think next summer's going to be a real test of Sunderland's hierarchy, to be honest.
Yeah. I think on the Bellingham side of things, I think even if Sunderland got promoted, we could still lose Bellingham. I think his life will be mapped out well above Sunderland.
Yeah, and of course as well, the Bellinghams have got such strong ties to Dortmund as well, and I don't necessarily see that as a negative, because it was the Bellingham family's strong ties to Sunderland, to Mike Dodds, to Christian Speakman that got him here in the first place. So we can't then sort of frown on that when it happens with Dortmund, which it probably will at some point, because I think they do really like him. So yeah, it's interesting. But again, you know, if that money allows us to then kick on again and get more Bellingham, if we can get more, isn't it? That's the model. If we can get more Bellinghams through the door, if we can get more Romain Mundles through the door, if we can have, you know, the next Trey Hume and Dan Ballard and stuff like that, then I think it does make sense. It'll be sad to see Bellingham go eventually, because he's a top player, and he's another one who's bought into the culture and the identity of Sunderland. Has really respected the club as well, I think. So
he's a top lad, isn't he? Just like his brother, really.
He is. I would be sad to see him go, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon. And I think, like, especially with the likes of Rigg and Bellingham and whatnot, I think we should just enjoy watching them play because it's. I think they could be playing Champions League football one day, and I think we could be looking at them going, "Wow!" Like, do you remember when they played for our club? And to be honest, I hope they go on to that success. I would love it to be. I would love it to be with Sunderland. We'll probably have to be realistic and admit that it's probably not going to be with us for the time being. But I would wish them every success, to be honest.
I think there's certain players I don't think will be with us for very long, and I think it's the likes of Rusin and Oshish. I don't think they're going to be here much longer. I mean, especially Oshish is a strange one, isn't it? Because Regis Labrie was the one that sold him to Sunderland in the first place, and it's a shame because I mean there was a lot of hype, especially for Rusin coming in, but it's not really worked for them, has it?
No. The trouble is with them type of players that you've mentioned, Cabbie, like the Ashish, Bar, Rusin, they don't work hard enough out of possession, and that if you don't do that with Regis, you're not in the team. Like,
without a shadow of a doubt, he's got his reasons behind it.
Yeah.
So, do you agree, James, Jacob? Do you think them two players will possibly? We won't be seeing the second half of the season.
They're probably going to be on the way out, aren't they? If not this season, they've not got long left, have they? To be fair.
No, I don't think so. It's like, he did show sort of glimmer, doesn't he, a bits and bobs, but he's missing that something that what the rest of the squad that we've got at the minute have. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things. It's a results business at the end of the day, and you've got to pick the best out there, without a doubt. So what's your predictions for tomorrow night? God, the show's gone quick today. It's 8:45 already. Are you confident? I mean, I'm confident for tomorrow night. Like, I think we'll hopefully.
Nice to see. You're normally a half glass full merchant.
I was when we kept drawn. I was just,
you keep trying to pull your hair out. You didn't realise you've got none.
Well, I'll do the opposite. I keep trying to put it back in when I'm stressed.
No, don't worry about, man. We're playing well.
Oh no. So, do you think we'll be expected to see Dennis Cirkin will get a start tomorrow?
I think it's interesting that actually, because obviously we mentioned 09 being a little bit under the weather. I think potentially Mackem comes in for 09. I think Dennis Cirkin will start because of Alisi's injury record. Yeah. I think Cirkin comes back in. I'm quite happy with that. I think Alisi can drop back to the bench and then come on. I thought, to be fair to Adji, although he was probably at fault for Stoke's goal, I thought on the overlap going past Tommy Watson, I thought he was fairly good. So I think he's a great option to have on the bench when he can cover sort of left-sided centre back and left back as well. So I think that would be the two changes. I think would be Mackem in for 09 and Cirkin in for Alisi. I think there's a little bit of a question mark about Chris Rigg and him playing a lot of games. But when I spoke to the head coach today, I asked him about that, which you'll be able to read in the morning, and it didn't really sound to me like he was considering dropping Rigg. So I can't say that one.
James, he sort of said that Riggy wants to play every game.
Yeah, he does.
Well, that's true. Young'uns want to play. He wants to play every day, doesn't he? When you're that age.
Yeah, and he's young enough to do it as well. I'm probably past that now, so he can run around.
Of course, we've got the other games going on tomorrow night. There's a real tasty one, isn't the Leeds against Middlesbrough? That's a real tasty one, which could affect our position because Burnley City, dare I say it, they've virtually got a bye against Derby County. They've been pretty poor this season. You expect Burnley to get 3 points against Derby on there. And of course, Wednesday we have got Sheffield United. Have not got an easy tie at Millwall, have they?
No,
not at all. And of course, they were leading against West Brom 2-2.
Millwall seem to have dropped off a bit since they lost Cooper. I think he's vital to their side. Like,
aye, it's just a weird league, isn't it? The Championship. It's like we were 5 points clear, and then all of a sudden we're...
Ask James, does he think he's seen a better side than Sunderland this season? Because I haven't.
I would say I was impressed with Leeds when they came to the Stadium of Light, but I thought Sunderland actually looked really, really good in that game in large parts. Sheffield United, I would be really, really interested to see Sunderland versus Sheffield United with 11 players for each side, because that was just such a bizarre game. But even then, Sunderland dominated large parts of that game. I think they were the better side. I mean, you look when we played Burnley, I think playing them again away from home, that'll be really, really interesting, because although they had some talent on the pitch, their team seems to have changed a little bit since then.
Definitely.
So I'm interested. Really interested in those. Obviously, Middlesbrough have kicked on since we played them as well. They were in awful form, Middlesbrough, when we played them. It took them a while to win even after that, didn't it? So those are the ones where I'm really interested to see what the return fixtures like. But to be honest with you, Dave, I don't think I've seen. I certainly haven't seen a team I've thought.
So what are you?
That are seriously better than Sunderland.
Yeah.
I've watched us against teams and thought we've been under par or anything and stuff like that, but I haven't felt like we've been blown away by anybody, to be honest. And I think that's encouraging.
I watched Sheffield United and West Brom yesterday. West Brom should have beat them.
Yeah, I've seen that. 2-2 it finished. I know. Paul Gramelo on the chat. Sorry we've not got to everybody tonight. He says, is it me or... in the Regis Labrie press interviews, you can't hear what's being asked. You just sort of hear this mumble, and then you just hear Regis Labrie spurting out.
Well, Cabbie, when you watch it live, you cannot hear it. But if you watch it back on YouTube, it's as clear as a bell.
Strange, that, isn't it?
So there's a tip for you.
There we go.
If you watch YouTube after, it's clear and loud. So I don't know how that works.
They've obviously sorted the levels out. Do you still think Regis Labrie's you think he's doing a good job so far then, James? You think he's like, even a little blip and that, do you still think he's the man for us to...
Definitely, I think he's really impressed me since he's come in. He's taken to the club, the culture. I think the most impressive thing about him to me is he's just so calm. He just... Whether Sunderland have lost, won, drawn, no matter what's happened to the game, I don't think I've seen him particularly annoyed yet, really. I mean, arguably after Sheffield United, he showed a little flicker of annoyance, didn't he, in his post-match press. But the point I'm trying to make is that he's never too high, he's never too low, he's never too emotional. I think that's a good thing, especially when you've got such a young squad. And I think with Labrie as well, is that if it doesn't work at Sunderland, it won't be through a lack of his effort and trying, because all of the things we hear from the Academy of Light is that he just lives and breathes football. He's always around his laptop. He's looking at all of the clips all of the time. He's studious. He's thoughtful. I think what's nice as well is that his personality starting to come out, especially in these press conferences. It feels like he's got his feet under the table. He started to have a little bit of a laugh. I felt like he was very guarded with us, especially in pre-season, which is completely understandable because he's coming to a new place that he didn't know, new faces. You've got idiots like me asking him questions, and he's probably thinking, what's going on here? I can't understand anybody. But I just feel like he's starting to relax a little bit, and I think that's a good thing. I've been impressed by his tactics so far.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been refreshing actually, because there was a lot of stuff like that Michael Beale did that you just thought like I just don't see what you're seeing there, to be honest. But it's been encouraging that he's come in, and just thinking back to pre-season as well, we were all saying, where's Job going to play? What's Job's best position? Labrie came in and went, I know what Job's best position is. He's going to play as a box-to-box midfielder, and now suddenly everyone's like, oh yeah, that's definitely his best position. So there's a lot of sort of square pegs and square holes, which is good. I think if I had one minor criticism, I think he does wait a little bit too long to make his subs occasionally. But I think that's one of them that's sort of defined by the result, isn't it? You always think the subs are wrong when you've lost, and you always think, you don't even mention the subs unless they've turned the game around. So, yeah, I've been hugely impressed with him. I think he's a likeable character, and long may it continue.
Do you think his personality is starting to shine through because of the amount of pink slices he's having at the minute?
James, do you buy in any of these rumours about Dodds has too much influence? It only seems to come up when we've
When
had a
the
bad result.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. I think, you speak to anybody at Sunderland, and they're all full of players for Mike Dodds. He's another one who was very studious. And let's face it, he was put in a really difficult position last season, wasn't he? He's, if nothing else, whether you rate him as a coach or manager or whatever, he's an extremely nice person and a really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
I think personally think he's good to have around the club. I think he's always going to be sort of not tarred with the same brush is the wrong word, but he's always going to have that Christian Speakman link, isn't he? And it's not a secret that the friends that they knew each other from Birmingham City before.
Yeah.
But that's just how football works. I don't see Mike Dodds as this sort of problem that that everybody's professed him to be in the past. I think in terms of his coaching, it's really positive. All of the players like him as well. Lebris has obviously brought in Ribeiro as well as a sort of second assistant manager. So at the moment, the coaching team seems to be going really well, and I think that continuity was probably a massive benefit to Lebris as well. He could pick Mike Dodds' brain about any of the
definitely
personality. So I sometimes think that's a good thing to have at the club. But in terms of last season, it was a really poor position Mike Dodds was put in. You know what? He never once sort of complained or grumbled. He tried to do the best job that he could.
Yeah.
Yes, at times it probably wasn't good enough, which was, ultimately his responsibility. But there was a lot of other stuff going on at the time in terms of the recruitment and whatnot. So, yeah, I only have good things to say about Mike Dodds, to be honest.
I'm the same. I think Sunderland should be grateful for having Mike Dodds.
John Nesbitt says if we don't go up, this model will be broken for sure. Do you reckon, James, if we didn't go up, do you think it would be really damaging for the club? Or not necessarily wouldn't be all that bad?
No,
I don't think it would be the end of the world. I think we would all like to get promoted, wouldn't we? It's been a long time, and it would be nice to have something to shout about. But contrary to what I said earlier in the show about the summer potentially being a little bit of a stumbling block if Sunderland don't get promoted, I don't think it would be the end of the world at all. I think there would be added interest in Sunderland's players. They might have to rebuild a little bit, but I think, to be honest, this model and the way of doing things that we all talk about quite often is, unless you've got parachute payments, is the way you have to do it. To be honest, because of the restrictions, and this is completely different levels to us. But you look at Brentford and Brighton, and they've managed to transform themselves into a team competing well in the Premier League. Based on this, yes, it hasn't been perfect at times. We know that, but hopefully they'll learn from that. And if this is the model and it's going to give us stories like Anthony Patterson breaking through and becoming Sunderland's #1 goalkeeper, if it's going to give us stories like Dan Neil captaining the club at 22 years old, if it's going to give us stories like Chris Rigg, making his debut, becoming the club's youngest ever goal scorer, Thomas Watson, Easington Bourne coming through, scoring a brace in his 6th start for the club. If that's the model and it centres around developing the Academy of Light Talent, I'm quite happy with that, to be honest, because I think that's how we're gonna achieve something in the long term. I think a lot of Sunderland's success in the Premier League under Ellis Short, if you could call it success, was always built on sand. It was never built on a proper long-term strategy. There was never any identity, and I do feel like we are getting a little bit of that identity back, and it's been sorely missing for a lot of years. So for me, I think the net positives outweigh the negatives. As I say, it hasn't been perfect. There's been some serious mistakes, but I'm definitely on board with it.
Great stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's absolutely brilliant the way you put that, James. It puts it all in a nutshell, and it just silences the doubters of the model. The model is working great, because look at the great games we're seeing. We're seeing great lads who give everything for the shirt, and that's all I ask for in my team.
Absolutely.
I think as well, though, with I'm definitely in favour, as you say, Davey, but I don't think as Sunderland fans we should ever, not criticise things, if you understand what I'm saying. We should always be analytical. We should always sort of, look at the other side of things. And again, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's above criticism.
Keep them honest.
And keep them honest, exactly. And if it did get to a point where the negatives did outweigh the positives, then maybe that's when you have to start having a look at it again. And things are always evolving in football as well. So you never know if this way of doing things is going to remain in vogue, if that's going to remain the best way to do things. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's always lots at play. That you know, fans just want the best, don't they? And I think we should. For me, anyway, personally, if somebody comes up to me and is like, you know, I've got a problem with this, and this, I think it's, you know, there are valid concerns as well, and you know, it's good to have that sort of healthy back and forth, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, just about wrapping up. Before we go, well, ask Jacob first if he's still alive. I think he is.
Yeah.
Score prediction for tomorrow, and who do you think will score, if we get any?
Oh, I'm going to go with 3-0. I'm going to go with Wilson. I think maybe Watson and maybe Job.
See at that. James, yourself, what do you think?
I'm going to go with 2-0. Wilson, Isidore, Brace.
Clean sheets. I like this. Davey, are you going to follow suit? Clean sheets?
All right. Clean sheet. I was going to say 2-0, but I'll say Roberts. Get us back on track there. And Isidore.
I would love to see Roberts score. I really would.
He needs a goal, doesn't he?
He does.
I reckon 3-0. Cirkin, Roberts, and Isidore. There we go.
So that's a nailed on 2-0 loss then, isn't it? Since we've all gone with positive results.
Aye. Well, I didn't think like that. Let's be positive. Anyway, James, thanks for coming on, mate. And when you say Phil, tell him to keep his on the whistle on. I love it.
I will. I'll tell him he'd be over the moon with that, Dave. Thank you.
I absolutely love that show. I love it.
Brilliant.
Aye, thanks for coming on, James. I've always enjoyed it, mate. It's been good.
Thanks for making it.
Cheers. Thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, mate. Have a good night. You
Right,
enjoyed it?
see you later.
All right, David. Say hello to the dogs for us, yeah?
I will do.
See you later,
Been a
Cabbie.
great show, Cabbie. Keep it up, son. Get Phil Smith on next week.
I will do. I'll work on it.
Try and get
cheers,
Danny.
mate. Pretty much.
Try and get Danny Collins on.
I'll get
Try and
Danny Collins on, aye.
or Frankie.
I'll get
Oh,
Frankie Francis, from Guns N' Roses. I'll get him on, aye.
Right. See you later, boys.
See you later.
See you later.
Hey,
See you, Cabbie.
Jacob, did you see the video I sent you with was that Anthony Mackem getting his haircut?
No, you didn't. Wait, did you send me it?
Yeah, I sent you. I was watching on YouTube or Facebook, and it was the Lad Bible, and there was
oh, I've already seen that. Yes, I've seen it. Yeah, they put Newcastle Sunderland shirt on the Newcastle fans.
I'll catch you. I'm just saying goodnight to the people in the chat. Not just 2 seconds, Jacob, lad.
Yeah.
Look, thanks everybody for joining in. We'll be doing the other show on Friday. Sorry if I've not got back to everybody's messages, but I do appreciate everybody that's popped in tonight. So until